In 1885 Chicago, Harper Aria found herself gripping her last dime, confronted with a harrowing decision: to witness her baby struggle against pneumonia or to part with the only possession she had remaining: herself. The man who responded to her urgent call surprised her by extending an unexpected gift from a stranger, a selfless kindness that would transform her life completely. Yet, as her past resurfaces to assert its claim, will Harper opt for the comfort of known constraints or embrace the daunting liberation that genuine love offers? Sophia's cries pierced the winter air with a sharpness reminiscent of shattered glass. Harper Aria leaned in close to the fragile wooden door of their cramped room, straining to catch any sounds of footsteps in the corridor. Mrs. Grace from next door has voiced her concerns twice this week regarding the noise. Another complaint could lead to eviction, and February in Chicago was certainly not the ideal time to be homeless with a sick baby. The room was frigid, like stepping into an icebox. Harper watched her breath escape in wispy clouds as she spoke, while frost adorned the interior of their lone window. She had crammed old newspapers into every crevice of the walls, yet the cold still seeped in like an uninvited guest that wouldn't take the hint to go away. Sophia rested on a heap of thin blankets, her small face flushed and burning with fever. Her breathing was harsh and unsettling, reminiscent of sandpaper rasping against wood. Harper recognized that sound from years past, a haunting echo of when her own mother fell ill. Pneumonia was a serious threat, capable of taking a baby's life within mere days. "Of course, my dear," Harper murmured softly, lifting her daughter into her arms. Sophia's body radiated heat, as if a small furnace was igniting within her. "Mother has arrived. All will be well." Yet Harper was aware of her deception. Everything was in disarray. Everything has felt off since Benjamin departed 3 months ago, pursuing his dreams of fortune in California. He had pressed his lips to hers in farewell, vowing to send funds, yet no letters had arrived. "There are no funds available as well." Harper strolled over to the window, her gaze drifting down to the bustling street beneath her. Horse-drawn carriages splashed through muddy puddles, transporting elegantly attired individuals to cozy homes and steaming meals. She placed her hand on the chilly glass, contemplating the sensation of living without the burden of uncertainty regarding her next meal. Her stomach emitted a pronounced rumble. Yesterday, she had consumed merely a tiny morsel of stale bread, reserving the remainder for today. However, Sophia required milk, and Harper's body was unable to produce enough due to her overwhelming hunger and fatigue. The infant's wails intensified. Harper bounced, softly humming a tune that her mother once sang. Yet Sophia remained agitated, her small hands pressed against Harper's neck, radiating warmth like miniature embers. A sudden, forceful knock on the door sent a jolt through Harper's heart. She stood still, wishing that the presence would simply vanish. Yet again, the knocking resounded, this time with greater intensity. "Madam Aria?" It was Mrs. Charlotte, the proprietor of the property. Her voice carried a weary irritation. "Please open this door. It's time for a conversation." Harper's hands trembled as she turned the key in the lock. Mrs. Charlotte lingered in the hallway, clutching a piece of paper. She was a robust woman with gray hair slicked back tightly, and her expression perpetually suggested she had just encountered an unpleasant odor. "You're overdue on your rent," Mrs. Charlotte stated bluntly, skipping any formalities. "Has it really been 3 weeks already? You owe me $9. $9 felt like it could have been 900. Harper possessed a mere 37 cents, tucked away in a crevice of the floorboard beneath Sophia's improvised bed. "Please," Harper said softly, "just a little more time. I am seeking employment opportunities." "What type of tasks?" Mrs. Charlotte's gaze sharpened. "No respectable family is inclined to employ a woman accompanied by a crying infant. Just take a moment to observe yourself." She gestured enthusiastically at Harper's arrival. "Your dress is tattered, your shoes are in disrepair, and you're as thin as a reed. Who would rely on you to tidy their home or prepare their meals?" The words pierced deeply, resonating with undeniable truth. Harper had parted with her sole beautiful dress weeks earlier to secure some food. The dress she wore had once belonged to Benjamin's mother, and it hung on her, oversized and dated. Her shoes were tattered, with holes that let in the biting cold and dampness, while her hair lay unwashed for more than a week. "I'll discover something," Harper asserted, though deep down, she no longer held that belief. Mrs. Charlotte gazed at Sophia, who continued to weep softly in Harper's embrace. For a brief instant, her demeanor softened ever so slightly. "The infant is unwell. She is running a fever. I suspect it could be pneumonia. Dr. Henry resides just 2 blocks away. He may come at a high price, but his rapport with children is exceptional." Harper felt a heavy weight in her chest. If Dr. Henry came with a high price tag, she simply couldn't manage to pay for him. "What is the cost?" "Just $2 for a visit to your home. Additional if she requires specific medication." $2. Harper was on the verge of tears. She could just as easily request the impossible. Mrs. Charlotte let out a deep sigh. "Listen, Mrs. Arya, I assure you I'm not devoid of compassion. I am a parent myself. However, I cannot operate a business based on pity. Some residents are expressing concerns about the noise, and I also have financial obligations to meet. What is the duration I have available?" 3 days. If payment isn't received by Friday, you will need to vacate the premises." Once Mrs. Charlotte departed, Harper perched on the bed's edge, her gaze fixed on the wall. 3 days. Sophia's breath grew more labored as the chill of winter deepened. If they were left to fend for themselves on the street, their chances of survival would diminish rapidly, likely leading to their demise within a week. She contemplated crafting a letter to Benjamin in California, pleading for financial assistance. Yet, even if he received the letter and chose to assist, it would require weeks for any funds to come through. Sophia was short on time. Harper approached the cracked mirror that hung on the wall, gazing at her reflection. Mrs. Charlotte was indeed correct. She appeared quite dreadful. Yet beneath the weariness and the pangs of hunger, her youth still shone through. Just 22 years of age. Some men may perceive her as attractive if she tidied herself up a bit. The idea coiled in her gut, a relentless wave of embarrassment that refused to dissipate. She had caught wind of murmurs regarding women who exchanged their bodies for financial gain. It was deemed the most disgraceful act for a woman, yet those women often had sufficient funds for sustenance and housing. "No," she declared to her reflection, "I will not proceed with that. There must be an alternative approach." As Sophia's coughing fit began anew, Harper pondered whether an alternative path truly existed. She found herself racing against the clock, with choices dwindling and optimism fading. She approached the window once more, gazing out at the street beneath her. A gentleman in an elegant coat was assisting a lady into a carriage. The woman chuckled at his words, her expression radiating warmth, happiness, and a sense of security. Harper leaned her forehead against the chill of the glass. What might it be like to experience a sense of safety once more? To be assured that Sophia would receive medicine when necessary, food when she felt hunger, and warm clothing when the chill set in? "I'm a good mother," she murmured to the silent space around her. "This does not define my worth as a mother." Yet, as she uttered those words, doubt lingered in her mind about their truth. Good mothers never entertained the idea of compromising their integrity. Resourceful mothers discovered alternative methods to nurture their children. Sophia's tears had ceased. Yet it wasn't due to any sense of relief. She had merely become too frail to shed tears any longer. Her small chest rose and fell rapidly, reminiscent of a bird's heart fluttering. Harper realized that the clock was ticking, and she needed to decide soon. By tomorrow, Sophia could be in such poor health that no medicine will be able to assist her. By Friday, they would find themselves without a home. She made her way to the floorboard where her last few coins were concealed and retrieved them. 37 cents. Insufficient for health care, inadequate for housing, just enough for a single loaf of bread. Yet perhaps it's sufficient for paper and ink to craft a message that could alter the course of everything, for better or worse. The morning sun cast elongated shadows over the boarding house's front steps, while Harper remained motionless, clutching a piece of paper in her quivering hand. She crafted and recrafted the note 5 times, yet the words still tasted off on her tongue when she attempted to vocalize them. "Young lady in search of a refined gentleman for evening engagements. Please visit room 3 between noon and 3 o'clock for inquiries." The words churned her stomach, yet it was Sophia's labored breaths from upstairs that truly unsettled her. Her daughter had hardly closed her eyes throughout the night, and this morning she refused to accept the sugar water that Harper attempted to offer her. An elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, residing on the first floor, emerged to sweep her front step. She cast a curious look at Harper. "Good morning, my dear," Mrs. Patterson said with warmth. You've risen with the dawn. Absolutely, ma'am. Harper swiftly folded the paper and concealed it behind her back. Mrs. Patterson stood out among the tenants for her unwavering kindness, and the mere idea of losing that warmth filled Harper with dread. How is your child doing? Last night I noticed her coughing. She is unwell. Harper's voice trembled. I am seeking employment to be able to pay for medical care. Mrs. Patterson paused her sweeping and turned her gaze toward Harper with greater scrutiny. What type of projects are you interested in pursuing? In a fleeting instant, Harper nearly revealed the truth to her. Mrs. Patterson possessed warm eyes and a soothing voice. Perhaps she would grasp the situation. Perhaps she might even lend a hand. Yet Harper envisioned those gentle eyes widening in disbelief and revulsion. She envisioned Mrs. Patterson distancing herself, making the sign of the cross, and revealing to everyone in the building what Harper Aria truly intended to do. Harper fabricated the truth about the cleaning work, cleaning garments, anything genuine. Mrs. Patterson offered a gentle nod of understanding. These are challenging times for all, particularly for women navigating life independently. I'll inquire and see if there's anyone in need of assistance. Thank you, Harper whispered, as the burden of her deceit sank into her gut like a heavy stone. Once Mrs. Patterson retreated indoors, Harper made her way to the message board positioned by the front entrance. Previously, others had left messages in this space, one seeking a missing feline, another trying to sell a second-hand coat, and yet another offering piano lessons. Harper's note would appear identical to theirs, at least outwardly. Yet those with the ability to discern the subtle nuances would grasp the true essence of her proposition. Her hands trembled as she affixed the note to the board. Once it was set in motion, there would be no turning back. It would capture attention and the news would circulate. By evening, the entire neighborhood would be aware that Harper Aria had reached the depths of despair. Yet Sophia was fading, and nothing else held significance. Is Mrs. Aria here? Harper twirled, her heart racing wildly. A young man lingered behind her, grasping a cap in his hands. He appeared anxious and self-conscious. Are you the woman seeking employment? He inquired softly. Harper felt a parched sensation in her mouth. She anticipated that her initial reply would arrive from an older individual, someone who appeared more menacing. This young man appeared to be no older than 17, his face adorned with freckles and eyes that brought to mind memories of her younger brother. Indeed, she was able to express it. The young lad moved his weight from one foot to the other. I'm Carter O'Brien. I am employed at the blacksmith shop located just down the street. Harper lingered, anticipating his next words, yet he remained silent, his gaze fixed on the ground. What type of project are you looking to have completed? Harper inquired, although she was quite certain she already had the answer. Carter's face flushed a vivid crimson. There's this girl who has captured my interest, Sarah McKenna. She is employed at the bakery. However, I'm unsure about how to engage in conversation with girls, and I considered that perhaps. His voice faded, a look of despair crossing his face. Harper blinked, her mind swirling in a haze of uncertainty. Are you looking for assistance in striking up a conversation with a girl? You appear to be quite pleasant, Carter remarked with optimism. And being a lady, you must have an understanding of what resonates with girls. If you could guide me on what to say, I might offer you a quarter in return. Harper felt a wave of relief wash over her, nearly prompting a laugh. The gentle boy wasn't seeking the type of companionship she had been ready to offer. He simply sought assistance for his beloved. I'd be delighted to assist you, she replied with a friendly smile. However, I must attend to my little one first. Could you return this afternoon? Carter's expression brightened. Is that so? Are you willing to assist me? Absolutely. As Carter rushed off, Harper experienced a flicker of optimism. Perhaps this was an indication. Perhaps she could discover genuine opportunities, assisting others with minor issues, rather than compromising her integrity for financial gain. However, upon returning to her room, Sophia found herself in a more dire state. Her skin radiated heat, and her breathing was a harsh, unsettling sound. Harper attempted to offer her water, yet Sophia lacked the strength to swallow. Please, sweetheart, Harper whispered. Simply endure for a bit more time. A second knock echoed through the room. Harper opened the door to reveal a stylishly attired woman poised in the hallway. She appeared to be in her 40s, adorned in luxurious attire and sporting meticulously styled hair. Are you the lady seeking employment? The woman inquired with a sharp tone. Absolutely, ma'am. The woman scrutinized Harper from head to toe with piercing eyes. I am Mrs. Abigail. I am looking for someone to come in and clean my house 2 times a week. The compensation is 50 cents per instance. Harper's heart soared. $1 a week held significant value, sufficient to purchase food and perhaps even set aside some savings for a doctor. Harper responded with keen interest, saying it swiftly. Mrs. Abigail entered the room uninvited. She scrunched her nose at the stench of illness and destitution. Her gaze swept over the tattered blankets, the peeling walls, the cramped quarters where Harper and Sophia resided. Mrs. Abigail remarked with a hint of disdain, "You have a baby," as she cast a disapproving glance at Sophia. Absolutely, ma'am. However, she tends to be quite reserved, and I could take her along with me. Definitely not. Mrs. Abigail's voice cut through the air with a piercing clarity. I manage a commendable home. I cannot allow a wailing baby to disrupt my household. She won't cry, Harper declared with urgency. She's unwell at the moment, but once she recovers. Unwell? Mrs. Abigail retreated swiftly. What type of illness are you referring to? It was merely a chill, Harper deceived. It's not a big deal. However, Mrs. Abigail was already making her way to the door. I apologize, but I require someone who can focus without interruptions. A person who is straightforward and uncomplicated. Once she departed, Harper sank down onto the bed with a weighty sigh. Sophia let out a soft whimper, prompting Harper to gently lift her up. Her daughter felt a sense of relief today, as if the illness that had weighed her down was finally dissipating from within. 2 additional visitors arrived in the afternoon. The first was an older man who glanced at Harper's worn dress and ailing baby, concluding that he required someone with a more polished appearance. The second was a woman who proposed a job to Harper as a seamstress, but only on the condition that she would toil for 12 hours a day in a cramped room located across town. Harper simply couldn't abandon Sophia for that extended period, particularly given how unwell she was. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Harper came to the unsettling conclusion that her plan was failing. Onlookers witnessed her hardship, her ailing child, her despair, and they turned away, offering no assistance. Finding even the most genuine work felt like an unattainable goal. She sat by the window, cradling Sophia and observing the street below when she noticed a man in a dark coat reading her note on the message board. He lingered, meticulously examining the paper with great attention. Harper felt her heart race. This individual stood apart from the rest. He appeared to be in his 40s, distinguished by gray streaks weaving through his dark hair. His attire was pleasant yet unpretentious, and there was a softness in his movements that captivated the eye. He gazed at the windows of the boarding house, as though attempting to discern which room was 3B. Harper recoiled from the window, her hands trembling. This was the moment. This was the moment she had anticipated all day. A man who truly grasped the significance of her note. Yet, as the moment arrived, uncertainty gripped Harper, leaving her questioning her ability to proceed. This unfamiliar person would anticipate her to engage in actions she had only shared with Benjamin. He anticipated that she would feign enjoyment, to behave as if she were the type of woman who exchanged herself for financial gain. Sophia emitted a gentle sound, prompting Harper to glance down at her daughter's rosy cheeks. As the light dimmed, Sophia appeared delicate and petite, reminiscent of a flower that could be swept away by the next gust of wind. Harper shut her eyes, envisioning the words Benjamin might utter if he were aware of her impending actions. He might feel quite upset, I imagine, appalled. He may never find it in himself to forgive her, even if he were to return from California. Yet, Benjamin was absent. He was oblivious to Sophia's struggle for breath. He ignored her faint pleas and remained oblivious to her scorching temperature. Harper found herself in solitude while Sophia faced her final moments. And at times, solitude required decisions that others might never comprehend. A gentle rap echoed against the door. A man dressed in lavish attire occupied the shadowy recess of Flanagan Tavern, and Harper's heart raced with such intensity that she feared it echoed throughout the room. The hazy atmosphere stung her eyes as she entered, leaving her uncertain whether the tears were a result of the smoke or the weight of her impending actions. "Are you in search of someone, miss?" The bartender's voice sliced through the clamor effortlessly. Harper's mouth was parched like the desert. The man clad in the azure coat, the imposing figure at the bar, scrutinized her from head to toe before slowly shaking his head. Are you really certain about this, my friend? You seem different from the kind he usually goes for. What was the significance of that? Harper pondered, yet fear held her back from inquiring. Instead, she approached the corner table on unsteady legs, each step feeling as though she was inching closer to the brink of a precipice. The man glanced upward as she drew near, and Harper's initial thought caught her off guard. His eyes were neither cruel nor ravenous as she had anticipated. They appeared forlorn, as if something invaluable had been snatched from him, and he continued to search for it. "Excuse me, Mr. Whitmore?" she murmured softly. He sprang to his feet, nearly toppling his chair in the process. "Is Mrs. Aria here? Kindly take a seat." Harper stood still, clutching her delicate shawl so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. "There's something I need to share with you before we proceed. This is a completely new experience for me. I'm uncertain about how these things operate." Thomas Whitmore gazed at her face, taking in every detail for an extended moment. His hair was silver at the temples, and his hands bore the marks of a life spent with pages rather than tools. "Share some details about your little one." The question struck Harper unexpectedly, like a sudden jolt. She had rehearsed for the question she anticipated, but this was unexpected. "She goes by the name Sophia. She is 8 months old." The words began to flow gradually, then surged forth like a torrent through a shattered barrier. She struggles to catch her breath. "The physician has diagnosed it as pneumonia. He is asking for $2 for the medicine, but I don't have that amount. I possess nothing." "What occurred with your husband?" Harper's cheeks flushed with warmth. "He departed, claimed that California was rich with gold, while Chicago was burdened with issues." She gazed at her weathered boots. "I suppose I contributed to the issues at hand." Thomas remained silent for such an extended period that Harper eventually glanced up. He rotated the gold ring on his finger repeatedly, as if weighing a significant decision. "It was 2 years ago that my wife passed away," he finally admitted. His voice carried a painful weight, as if each word was a struggle to utter. "The same illness as your child. I possessed an abundance of wealth for health care and treatments, yet it proved futile. I remained by her bedside each day, observing as her strength diminished further and further." Harper sensed a constriction in her throat. "I apologize." She slipped away from me. Thomas delved into his coat and retrieved 3 gleaming silver coins. The lamplight enveloped them, causing them to radiate with a soft brilliance. "Perhaps I can help another person." Harper gazed at the money, as if it could vanish the moment she closed her eyes. "What would you like me to do?" Silence. "Is there really nothing?" Harper's voice emerged as a high-pitched squeak. "However, I had a different thought. What other reason could there be?" Thomas slid the coins across the table in her direction. "Embrace them. Purchase the medication. Nourish your little one." Harper's hands trembled as she extended them toward the money, then hesitated. "This is quite perplexing." "Men do not part with their money without a reason. Certain individuals do." Thomas's smile was subtle yet genuine. "Some men recall the sensation of vulnerability. Some men seek to achieve something meaningful before their time comes to an end. Are you feeling unwell?" The question slipped out before Harper could catch it. Thomas chuckled, and the sound echoed through the vacant corners of the hazy room. "We are all facing our mortality, Mrs. Aria. The inquiry revolves around how we choose to utilize the time that remains for us." Harper grasped the coins with quivering fingers. They radiated warmth as if they had basked in sunlight rather than lingered in a shadowy tavern. "I'm puzzled as to why you're offering your assistance. Perhaps comprehension isn't necessary. Perhaps it's time to allow yourself to receive support." The tavern door swung open, ushering in a chill and 3 men who exuded an air of mischief. They were boisterous and reeked of alcohol, as if they had been indulging for hours. One of them noticed Harper and elbowed his friends. "Ah, what an intriguing sight we have before us." The largest one sauntered over, his gaze shifting between Harper and Thomas as if he were piecing together a riddle. "This is quite intriguing." Thomas rose gradually, and Harper observed that he was taller than she had anticipated. "The woman and I were just wrapping up our discussion." "Oh, really?" The inebriated man smiled, revealing gaps where teeth once were. What sort of dialogue could that entail? Harper gripped the coins tightly in her hand and rose to her feet. "It's time for us to leave." "Hold on a moment, darling." The man positioned himself to obstruct her way. Perhaps you would prefer to engage in a dialogue with someone more aligned with your age group. Move aside. Thomas's voice shifted, taking on a steely edge. What is it, Grandpa? The next turn of events took everyone by surprise, particularly Harper. Thomas surged forward with surprising speed, seizing the drunk man's wrist and twisting it in a manner that elicited a yelp akin to that of a kicked dog. The woman announced our departure, while Thomas remained composed, gripping the man's wrist firmly. I recommend you seek out a different place to enjoy a drink this evening. The inebriated man's companions moved ahead, yet the bartender's voice resonated powerfully throughout the space. That will suffice. Either move it outdoors or leave it behind. Thomas let go of the man's wrist and extended his arm to Harper. Shall we proceed? They stepped into the frigid night, Harper's heart pounding from the recent events. In the background, the sound of inebriated men filled the air as they bickered over who was at fault. Thank you, she said, after they had made it safely down the street. Is it for the money or for the sake of saving someone? Both options. Harper cast a sidelong glance at him as they strolled along. Where did you acquire that skill with his wrist? Military from ages past. Thomas's voice echoed from a distance. Occasionally, past teachings proved to be quite useful. They paused at the intersection where Harper had to veer toward her boarding house. The streetlight illuminated the muddy ground, stretching shadows into the night, while Harper watched her breath form delicate clouds in the crisp, cold air. Will our paths cross once more? She inquired, only to feel a wave of embarrassment wash over her for having done so. Thomas pondered this. Are you interested in meeting up again? Harper found herself nodding in surprise. You're different from what I anticipated. What were your expectations? A person who is unkind. A person who would diminish my sense of worth and leave me feeling unclean. She gazed at the coins tightly held in her palm. A person who prefers to take rather than to offer. There are individuals like that, Thomas remarked softly. Yet there exist various types of men as well. What type are you? Thomas remained silent for an extended period, observing a carriage as it rolled by on the muddy street. The type who has experienced profound loss and is determined to prevent others from facing the same fate. Harper sensed a change within her, akin to a long-locked door finally swinging open. I ought to take my leave. Sophia is likely pondering my whereabouts. Absolutely. Thomas adjusted his hat with a subtle flourish. Wishing you a peaceful night, Mrs. Aria. Good night, Mr. Whitmore. Harper strolled home along the shadowy streets, the coins radiating warmth in her hand, while her thoughts whirled with unanswerable questions. She could hear Thomas's footsteps fading behind her, and the temptation to turn around and pursue him was almost overwhelming. At the boarding house, she ascended the creaky stairs to her room, where Sophia rested peacefully in her makeshift crib. Her daughter's breathing remained rough and shallow, yet tomorrow would bring a transformation. Tomorrow, Sophia is scheduled to receive her medicine. Harper perched on the edge of her slender bed, her palm unfurling to reveal the coins once more. In the soft glow of her solitary candle, they appeared to shimmer with potential. Yet beyond that, they embodied a notion she had nearly lost sight of, generosity that came without a cost. After months of uncertainty, Harper Aria finally drifted off to sleep, her heart filled with hope rather than fear. Outside her window, the Chicago wind whispered of the possibility that, on rare occasions, the world could astonish you with its beauty. Dr. Henry appeared with such swiftness that Harper couldn't help but think he might have been lurking just out of sight, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. As he ascended the narrow stairs to her room, the black leather bag he carried exuded an air of significance, while Harper trailed behind him, a concerned shadow in his wake. "Show me the child," he stated firmly, his voice leaving no room for argument. Sophia rested in her basket, her breaths coming in quick, shallow puffs that stirred a knot of concern in Harper's stomach. The physician examined her chest with his peculiar metal device, then peered into her mouth and gently touched her small forehead. Pneumonia. Exactly as I anticipated. Dr. Henry delved into his bag and retrieved a petite brown bottle. Administer 3 drops of this medication every 4 hours. Nothing more, nothing less. Excessive amounts will worsen her condition. Harper grasped the bottle with trembling hands. It was less substantial than she had anticipated for an item priced at $2 whole. When can we expect her to improve? If we detected it in time, she ought to show improvement within a week. The physician carefully stowed his tools away in his bag. Ensure she stays cozy and encourage her to hydrate frequently. Once he departed, Harper settled next to Sophia's basket and meticulously dispensed 3 drops of the medicine onto a tiny spoon. Sophia grimaced at the bitter flavor but dutifully swallowed it down, displaying her resilience. "There," Harper murmured, gently caressing her daughter's delicate hair. "This will enhance everyone's abilities." After weeks of suffocating tension, Harper finally experienced the sweet relief of being able to breathe freely. Sophia would survive. The treatment would be effective. All would turn out well. A gentle rap on her door broke the silence of her contemplation. Harper opened the door to reveal Thomas Whitmore in the hallway, cradling a sizable basket draped with a pristine white cloth. "Mr. Whitmore, what brings you here?" He stated plainly that he thought you might be hungry. "I was curious to check in on Sophia's well-being." Harper gazed at the basket, then shifted her gaze to him. "You traveled all this distance just to deliver food? Is that really unusual?" Indeed, it was the most peculiar occurrence that had befallen Harper in quite some time. She moved aside to allow him entry, a sudden realization washing over her about the cramped and worn appearance of her room. The newspaper wedged into the wall cracks appeared particularly humiliating. Thomas placed the basket on her petite table and carefully lifted the cloth away. Harper's eyes grew large with surprise. Warm bread, creamy cheese, crisp apples, and a jar of sweet honey. The provisions were ample, sufficient to sustain for several days. "I can't accept all this," she said, her mouth watering despite her words. "Why not indeed? Due to the reasons. Due to the reasons." Harper grappled with expressing her thoughts clearly. People rarely engage in such actions without a reason. Thomas settled onto her one wobbly chair, taking care to avoid any loud creaks. "What if I revealed that there's a purpose behind my actions?" Harper felt a heavy weight in her chest. "Here it comes," she mused. "The genuine motive. The thing he seeks in exchange. What if I shared with you," Thomas continued, "that I'm doing it because it brings me a sense of purpose once more. For the first time in 2 years, I finally have a reason to rise from my slumber each morning." That was not the response Harper had anticipated. "I find myself puzzled." Thomas surveyed her modest room, noting the chipped walls and the flimsy blanket draped over her bed. "Since my wife passed away, I lost all sense of purpose. My house is spacious, yet it carries an air of emptiness. I possess funds, yet there's nothing that captures my interest for expenditure. I find myself with time on my hands, yet nothing of significance to occupy it." Sophia emitted a soft noise from her basket, prompting both adults to glance in her direction. She was resting more soundly than she had in days. "And then I encountered you," Thomas murmured softly. "A mother fearless enough to go to any lengths for her child's safety. A mother willing to give up anything for the sake of love." He took a moment to reflect. "You brought to my attention that there are still causes deserving of our struggle." Harper felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I lack courage." I felt an overwhelming sense of fear. To be courageous doesn't imply the absence of fear. It signifies taking action despite your fears. Harper tore off a chunk of the warm bread and sank her teeth into it. The flavor was so exquisite it left her feeling lightheaded. "When was the last time you enjoyed something this fresh?" she pondered aloud. "When was the last time you had something to eat?" Thomas inquired softly. Harper's cheeks flushed with color. "Yesterday. I enjoyed a bowl of soup that Mrs. Charlotte kindly provided." What happened prior to that? Harper found herself at a loss for recollection. The days began to merge into one another as she could no longer manage to have regular meals. "It holds no significance. Sophia required nourishment more than I did." Thomas shook his head in disbelief. "Sophia requires her mother to possess strength and good health. One must prioritize their own well-being in order to truly support another. I'm doing well. Are you?" Thomas observed her intently. "When was the last time you enjoyed a full night's sleep? When was the last time you spent an entire day free from financial concerns?" Harper was unable to respond to both inquiries. She struggled to recall the last moment when she had genuinely felt secure or completely at ease. "I have a concept," Thomas remarked. "Most afternoons around 3 o'clock, I stroll through Lincoln Park. The crisp air stimulates contemplation, and there are benches available where you can sit alongside Sophia. If you ever seek companionship, just companionship, nothing beyond that, you would be more than welcome to accompany me." Harper regarded him with a wary eye. Simply strolling? Is it just a conversation? Simply strolling and conversing? Thomas rose, mindful of not disrupting Sophia. I understand that trust doesn't come easily to you, Mrs. Arya. There are valid reasons for you to refrain from doing so. Yet there are moments when individuals genuinely wish to assist without anticipating any reward. Once he departed, Harper remained at her table, savoring additional pieces of the warm bread drizzled with honey. The sweetness appeared to stir dormant parts of her that had been in slumber for months. She sensed a newfound strength within her, a return to her true self. Sophia shifted in her cozy basket and blinked her eyes open. After days of gloom, their eyes finally shone with clarity and brightness, shedding the haze of fever. Hello, my dear, Harper whispered, lifting her daughter into her arms. How are you feeling now? Sophia cooed softly, her little fingers stretching out to touch Harper's face. Her skin had a refreshing coolness, and her breaths came with newfound ease. Harper embraced her tightly and made her way to the tiny window that overlooked the alley. From her vantage point, she observed others engaged in their daily routines, washing clothes, hauling packages, and conversing with neighbors. Everyday individuals navigating through the routines of life. Perhaps she could also experience a life that feels ordinary. Perhaps this harrowing ordeal of hardship and despair was finally coming to a close. Perhaps Thomas Whitmore truly possessed the kindness he appeared to have. Yet, as hope swelled within her, a faint voice in the recesses of her mind murmured caution. What appeared to be too perfect often turned out to be just that. Men who extended their assistance without anticipating compensation often sought something different in return. Women like her, those who had sunk so low that they were prepared to sell themselves, rarely found happy endings. Harper set aside those thoughts and concentrated on the comforting presence of Sophia nestled in her embrace. Tomorrow, she would ponder the true desires of Thomas. Tomorrow, she would devise a plan to repay him. This evening, she would simply feel thankful that her daughter was alive and on the path to recovery. Beyond her window, the initial stars started to emerge in the deepening twilight. Harper focused on the brightest star, whispering the same wish she had held in her heart for months. Please let Sophia be safe. Kindly allow Sophia to find her happiness. I hope Sophia can experience a life filled with more opportunities and happiness than I have had. For the first time, she permitted herself to include an additional line. And if it's not too much to request, may I also discover some joy? The stars shimmered as though it had listened to her, and Harper beamed as she tucked Sophia back into her basket for the night. Tomorrow will usher in fresh challenges, fresh concerns, and fresh choices to confront. Yet this evening, for the first time in what felt like ages, both she and her daughter would drift off to sleep with satisfied stomachs and healing medicine mending their wounds. It sufficed. Plenty to go around. It encompassed all that one could desire. Mrs. Charlotte's broom hit the boarding house steps with the authority of a judge's gavel, each stroke intended to sweep away the disgrace that Harper Arya had cast upon her esteemed establishment. The landlady's expression contorted in revulsion as she observed Harper gathering her scant possessions through the grimy window. Good riddance, Mrs. Charlotte grumbled, her voice carrying through the entire neighborhood. Some women seem to struggle with understanding their role in this world. Harper's hands trembled as she carefully tucked Sophia's delicate dresses into the frayed carpet bag. 3 days had gone by since Beatrice Morrison had seen her with Thomas in Lincoln Park. In just 3 days, whispers ignited across Chicago's close-knit community, spreading like flames through parched wheat. In just 3 days, her world would shatter once more. Sophia cooed joyfully from her basket, blissfully ignorant of the impending loss of their home. The baby's pure smile tugged at Harper's heartstrings. How could she convey to her daughter that being in the company of a kind man was, in some way, more detrimental than enduring hunger on the streets? A sudden, forceful knock echoed against the fragile door. Harper's stomach sank, bracing for Mrs. Charlotte's inevitable sharp remarks. Instead, she discovered Sarah Chin, the young Chinese woman responsible for cleaning the rooms on the first floor. I brought you something, Sarah whispered, her eyes darting anxiously down the hallway. She placed a delicate cloth bundle into Harper's hands. Nourishment for the adventure ahead. So? She paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Whispers circulate in the kitchen. Poor conversation. Harper felt a constriction in her throat. What type of conversation? This morning, the women from the church paid a visit. Whispers filled the air, suggesting that you and Mr. Whitmore are— Sarah felt a flush creep across her cheeks. They intend to pay a visit to the Reverend. They aim to ensure that no respectable family will consider you for employment. The bundle of food abruptly weighed down in Harper's hands, feeling as heavy as a stone. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Sarah nodded and rushed off, her footsteps resonating in the tight corridor like hushed confessions. Harper shut the door and pressed her back against it, struggling to hold back her tears. The church ladies had more on their minds than mere gossip. They aimed to obliterate every opportunity she had to create a fresh start. Across the street, Mrs. Patterson energetically swept her front porch, her gaze frequently flicking toward Harper's window. Just a couple of doors away, Mrs. O'Brien lingered in her garden, feigning interest in her roses while clearly attuned to any noises emanating from the boarding house. Harper had transformed into the neighborhood's delightful morning spectacle. The rhythmic clatter of wagon wheels against the cobblestones sent a thrill through her heart. Through the dirty window, she observed Thomas descending from his carriage, his expression resolute. A group of women on the street paused their morning tasks to gaze intently. "Observe him," Mrs. Patterson exclaimed to Mrs. O'Brien, arriving to gather his partner under the bright sun. Absolutely no shame. Harper felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Thomas was jeopardizing his own standing merely by being present. She observed him ascend the boarding house steps, his posture unwavering in spite of the stares and the murmurs trailing behind him. His knock was soft yet resolute. "Is that you, Harper?" "Greetings, it's Thomas." She swung the door open swiftly, eager to avoid fueling the gossip among the neighborhood women. "Your presence here is unwelcome. Eyes are upon us." Thomas cast a quick look at the women on the opposite side of the street, who instantly feigned engagement in their tasks. "Allow them to observe. Are you prepared?" "Thomas, I'm unable to accompany you. It will only exacerbate the situation." Harper spoke in a hushed tone, mindful that Mrs. Charlotte might be eavesdropping from a hidden spot close by. "The church ladies are plotting to tarnish my reputation entirely. What if I were to take up residence in your home? How do you perceive your standing?" Thomas's eyebrows arched in surprise. "Harper, you are a devoted mother who came close to giving up everything for the sake of your child. That's the sole reputation that holds significance." "Not in this world," Harper remarked with a hint of sorrow. "In this world, a woman in the company of a man signifies only one outcome. Once individuals come to accept that—" Sophia began to weep from her basket, as though she could feel the weight of her mother's sorrow. Harper cradled her, swaying softly. The weight of the baby in her arms served as a poignant reminder of the insignificance of everything else. Sophia sought refuge. Sophia required sustenance, comfort, and care when she fell ill. A sharp voice rang out from the street, calling for Mrs. Aria. Harper gazed out as Reverend Mitchell made his way toward the boarding house, his black coat swirling behind him like ominous storm clouds. Following him were three of the church ladies, among them Beatrice Morrison, their expressions resolute and filled with conviction. "This doesn't seem promising," Thomas murmured. Reverend Mitchell ascended the steps with deliberate slowness, his pale eyes absorbing every nuance of the surroundings. "Mrs. Aria, I am here to discuss your circumstances with you." "What circumstance might that entail, Reverend?" Harper inquired, despite already being aware. "A number of worried individuals from our congregation have shared concerning accounts with me, information regarding your connection with this individual." He acknowledged Thomas with a subtle nod, avoiding direct eye contact. As a woman navigating the world independently, it is crucial to be particularly mindful of how you present yourself. Beatrice Morrison advanced, her grin cutting through the air like a chill breeze. "Our only concern is for your well-being, dear Harper, and naturally, your daughter's spiritual health." "How is Sophia's spiritual health?" Harper sensed her fear beginning to give way to anger. "Where was your concern for her spiritual well-being during her battle with pneumonia? Where were you when we faced hunger, cold, and despair?" The Reverend's expression grew somber. "Mrs. Aria, your tone conveys a troubling sense of arrogance, hubris that hinders your ability to embrace valuable advice." "Appropriate direction?" Thomas advanced, his tone meticulously measured. "Reverend, what support did your congregation provide when Mrs. Aria was confronted with eviction? When her little one was unwell?" "That is not the matter at hand," Reverend Mitchell responded with a rigid demeanor. The challenge lies in upholding ethical principles within our community. Mrs. O'Brien had quietly approached during the discussion, and now her voice emerged from the base of the steps. This arrangement is quite familiar to us all. A respectable woman refrains from accepting assistance from a man unless... Unless what do you mean? Harper's voice sliced through the morning air with precision. Unless she finds herself in a position where she must witness her child's demise. Unless she's hungry enough to contemplate options that would shock you refined women. The room hushed, taken aback by her candor. Harper observed the expressions of those around her, the Reverend's frown of disapproval, Beatrice's smug satisfaction, and Mrs. O'Brien's curiosity masked as concern. Are you curious about the reality? Harper pressed on, her voice gaining strength. Indeed, I found myself in a state of desperation. Indeed, I contemplated extreme measures to provide for my daughter. Indeed, when Mr. Whitmore extended his assistance rather than alternatives, I embraced it with gratitude. Beatrice let out a dramatic gasp. Harper, is that what you mean by such language and honesty? Harper adjusted Sophia to her opposite arm. You women relax in your cozy parlors, passing judgment on those like me. Yet none of you have ever had to confront the agonizing decision between your child's life and your cherished reputation. Reverend Mitchell's face had taken on an awkward hue of crimson. Mrs. Aria, should you continue with this defiant stance, I regret to inform you that the church will be unable to provide you with any help or backing. Harper replied that the church had never provided her with assistance before. What makes me think it will happen at this moment? Thomas had been absorbing the conversation in silence, yet now he moved nearer to Harper's side. Reverend, could you clarify the support the church provided to Mrs. Aria during her time of need? That misses the essence. The Reverend hesitated, his words faltering. It appears to be quite significant to me, Thomas went on. You are here to criticize a woman for seeking the assistance she urgently required. But where were you when she required support? Mrs. Patterson shouted from the other side of the street, her voice resonating in the fresh morning air. Assistance often carries a cost, if you catch my drift. Harper's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, yet Thomas faced the woman with an unruffled smile. Isn't it, Mrs. Patterson? I am confident that various individuals in our community played a significant role in supporting your husband with his drinking issue. Was there a cost associated with that assistance? Mrs. Patterson's lips clamped together with a decisive snap. Sophia had ceased her tears and was now surveying the adults with wide, inquisitive eyes. Her pure gaze appeared to underscore the ridiculousness of the entire scenario. Here they stood, a collection of adults embroiled in a heated debate over a mother's difficult decisions, while the child in question observed calmly. This is leading us in circles, Beatrice remarked, adjusting her luxurious skirts with a graceful motion. Harper, a decision lies before you. Terminate this arrangement and reintegrate into conventional society, or confront the repercussions of your choices. What repercussions? Harper inquired. No reputable employer will consider your application. No respectable boarding house will accept you. Your daughter will carry the weight of your shame as she grows. Beatrice's voice resonated with the authority of one issuing a decisive decree. Harper glanced at Sophia, then at Thomas, and finally at the assembly of individuals who asserted their moral superiority. The morning sun angled gently over the boarding house steps, caressing her face and infusing her with vitality. Harper spoke softly. My daughter will grow up understanding that her mother chose love instead of fear. She'll understand that at times, the best decision isn't the simplest one, and she'll understand that genuine kindness is free from conditions or judgments. Reverend Mitchell let out a deep, weary sigh. I regret to hear you express that, Mrs. Aria. Regrettably, we find ourselves in a position where we must officially remove you from our congregation. Harper replied, I distanced myself the instant I understood that your community prioritizes reputation over compassion. The Reverend and the ladies began to depart, their task seemingly accomplished. As they stepped onto the street, Thomas shouted after them, Reverend, I have another inquiry. The figure in black hesitated before turning around. During your sermon last Sunday, didn't you discuss the Good Samaritan? Concerning the act of assisting those in need without passing judgment? Reverend Mitchell's face flushed an even deeper shade of crimson. That is completely distinct. In what way? Thomas inquired plainly. Yet the Reverend remained silent. He pivoted and strode off, accompanied by his band of virtuous women, leaving Harper and Thomas on the boarding house steps with Sophia nestled between them. Mrs. Charlotte stood in the doorway, her expression a blend of relief and what could have been regret. "So, that's settled. Please gather the remainder of your belongings, Mrs. Arya." As Harper collected the final remnants of their possessions, she sensed a shift that had occurred during the confrontation. The burden of shame that had pressed upon her for weeks seemed to lift, if only slightly. Confronting the Reverend and his followers hadn't resolved her issues, yet it had reinforced the truth that her value wasn't defined by their judgments. Thomas assisted her with her bags, guiding them to his carriage as onlookers from the neighborhood observed from their windows. As they placed Sophia in the carriage seat, Harper experienced an unusual feeling of liberation. "Are you prepared?" Thomas inquired, grasping the reins firmly. Harper cast a glance at the boarding house, then at the faces peering from the windows, and finally at Sophia's trusting gaze. "Indeed," she replied, "I'm prepared." Yet, as the carriage departed from the curb, Harper felt an unsettling certainty that their challenges were only starting to unfold. The brass nameplate on the law office door displayed Aldrich and Associates in graceful script, yet Harper felt far from graceful as she ascended the narrow stairs behind Thomas. Sophia squirmed in her mother's embrace, instinctively picking up on the unease surrounding this enigmatic appointment that Thomas had set up. "What prompted you to seek a meeting with a lawyer?" Harper inquired for the third time that morning. Thomas halted on the landing, his fingers resting on the gleaming doorknob. "Sometimes, safeguarding involves more than just noble intentions, Harper. At times, it necessitates formal legal paperwork." The air in the waiting room was thick with the scent of leather and high-end tobacco. Law books towered from floor to ceiling, their spines adorned with gold lettering, forming a striking yet daunting array. Harper found herself in a lawyer's office for the very first time. In her realm, legal issues often spelled trouble, evictions, fatalities, or even more dire circumstances. A secretary with impeccably styled gray hair glanced up from her desk. "Excuse me, Mr. Whitmore. Mr. Aldrich awaits your presence." The private office of the lawyer surpassed the grandeur of the waiting room. Sunlight poured through the towering windows, casting a warm glow on a grand oak desk adorned with meticulously arranged piles of papers. Seated at the desk was a slender figure, his gentle gaze complemented by fingers marked with ink. "Mrs. Arya, kindly take a seat." Mr. Aldrich motioned toward a cozy chair situated opposite his desk. "Mr. Whitmore has shared your circumstances with me." Harper cast a curious glance at Thomas as he made himself comfortable in the chair next to her. "What circumstance?" Mr. Aldrich opened a substantial folder and extracted a number of formal documents. "Your reputation is at stake, among other concerns. However, the critical issue at hand is the legal risks you encounter as a single mother lacking financial means." "I don't understand," Harper said, a chill settling in her stomach. The attorney leaned in, his demeanor earnest yet kind. "Mrs. Arya, do you realize that according to the existing legal framework, a challenge to your capabilities as a mother could result in you losing custody of your daughter?" The words struck Harper with the force of a physical blow. She held Sophia close, making the baby squirm and whimper in response. "Lose custody? However, she is my daughter." Mr. Aldrich explained with great care that the law does not always safeguard mothers who society considers unsuitable. A solitary woman, relying on the kindness of a man, encountering judgment from religious figures, these elements could be wielded against you. Thomas extended his arm and gently grasped Harper's unoccupied hand. "That's the reason for our presence, Harper, to ensure that it never occurs." "But who would dare to question my fitness?" Harper inquired. Yet as the words left her lips, she recalled Beatrice Morrison's contented grin and the Reverend's ominous warnings. Mr. Aldrich reviewed his notes. "Mr. Whitmore brought up a number of women from your previous congregation who have expressed their concerns quite openly. Your landlady has raised concerns regarding your behavior." Harper sensed the confines of the office tightening around her. "What options do I have?" The lawyer responded, retrieving various documents. "Initially, we can designate Mr. Whitmore as Sophia's legal guardian, ensuring her financial stability and social safeguarding." "Protector?" Harper's voice trembled. "Are you suggesting that she should be taken away from me?" No, Thomas replied hastily. Co-guardianship, Harper. Safeguarding the rights of both parties. Mr. Aldrich gave a slight nod. It's uncommon, yet not without precedent. Mr. Whitmore possesses the legal authority to advocate for both of you, thereby complicating any custody dispute significantly. Harper gazed down at Sophia, who had drifted off in her embrace, oblivious to the tension that filled the air. The expression on her daughter's face was serene and trusting, blissfully ignorant of the future being deliberated by the adults in formal attire. Mr. Aldrich proceeded with caution, presenting another option. Marriage offers the most robust legal safeguards. The word lingered in the atmosphere, reminiscent of the wisps from a high-end cigar. Harper sensed a flush rise to her cheeks. Though the thought had crossed her mind during their quiet evenings together, she and Thomas had never broached the subject of marriage. "That's not the reason for our presence," Harper stammered. Thomas remained silent for an extended period, his gaze locked onto the document strewn across the lawyer's desk. "Is it not?" At last he inquired. Just as Harper was about to reply, a disturbance broke out in the outer office. Voices raised, the secretary's objections ringing out, and suddenly, the door to Mr. Aldrich's office swung wide open. Benjamin Aria lingered in the doorway, his clothes marked by travel and his hair unkempt, presenting the image of a man who had journeyed far and fast. Behind him, the secretary nervously twisted her hands, offering an apologetic demeanor. "I apologize, Mr. Aldrich." He refused to wait. "Hello, Harper," Benjamin said, his gaze sweeping over the tableau before him. His wife, his daughter, his substitute, and a lawyer with custody documents laid out on his desk. Harper's heart froze. "Is that you, Benjamin?" "How did you—" "Word travels quickly in a tight-knit community," Benjamin responded, entering the office without an invitation. "I heard my wife was cohabitating with a wealthy man. I decided to check it out in person." Mr. Aldrich rose gradually, maintaining his composed demeanor in the face of the unexpected disruption. "Mr. Aria, I take it? This meeting is for select individuals only. Confidential discussion regarding my spouse and my child." Benjamin chuckled, yet the sound held no trace of amusement. "I have my doubts about that." Thomas had also gotten up, placing himself just a bit between Benjamin and Harper. "Your departure for California meant you relinquished any claim to them." "Did I really?" Benjamin retrieved a neatly folded piece of paper from the depths of his coat pocket. "As the law stands, I remain her husband, yet still the father of Sophia, and I'm here to bring them back." Harper discovered her voice, though it emerged as little more than a whisper. "Residence? We lack a place to call home, Benjamin. Your departure ensured that outcome." "We have a home now," Benjamin said, his voice softening with warmth. "I found something extraordinary, Harper. Genuine gold, sufficient to purchase a home, employ staff, and live in a manner befitting respectable individuals." He delved into another pocket and extracted a small leather pouch. As he lifted the lid, the sunlight danced upon the shimmering gold nuggets within. "Check this out," Benjamin said, his enthusiasm building. "We have wealth, Harper. Every issue we faced has been resolved." Harper gazed at the gold, recalling the long months of hunger, the frigid nights, and Sophia's fever. A portion of her yearned to embrace joy at Benjamin's achievement. Instead, she experienced a profound, weary sorrow. "Where were you when Sophia passed away?" she inquired softly. Benjamin's enthusiasm wavered a bit. "I was crafting our future, the future ahead." He motioned toward the gold. "She came perilously close to death, Benjamin. Pneumonia. I remained by her bedside for days, observing her fight for each breath, uncertain of whether she would survive or succumb. Yet she didn't die," Benjamin remarked, as though that settled all matters. "She is doing well now. Both of you are perfectly fine." Sophia shifted in Harper's embrace, roused by the murmur of strange voices. Upon catching sight of Benjamin, she recoiled against her mother's shoulder, her delicate features contorting as if on the verge of tears. "She doesn't remember you," Harper said, her words heavier than she had meant them to be. Benjamin's expression grew somber. "She is my daughter. She will retain what is essential to her." Mr. Aldrich cleared his throat with a measured grace. "Maybe it's time for us to gather and have a thoughtful conversation about this." "There's nothing more to say," Benjamin stated decisively. "I'm bringing my family back home." "What happens if they choose not to go?" Thomas inquired softly. Benjamin glanced at him, as though he was finally perceiving him with clarity. What if they choose not to? She is my wife, you fool. She follows my direction without question. That's not how it works anymore, Harper stated, surprising herself with the conviction in her tone. Benjamin fixed his gaze upon her. Could you repeat that? I mentioned that things have changed, and that's not the way it operates now. Harper rose to her feet, cradling Sophia in her arms. I have transformed since you walked away, Benjamin. I cannot be. Absolutely you can. We'll return to the way things used to be. Before what exactly? Did you really leave us with nothing? Before I almost lost our daughter? Before I understood the true essence of kindness? Harper's voice resonated with increasing power as she spoke. Benjamin's face flushed with color. Genuine compassion? From that individual. He snapped his head in Thomas's direction. Harper, you're acting unwisely. No matter what he has presented to you or what assurances he has given, it will not endure. Men of his caliber don't hold on to women like you. The insult lingered in the atmosphere, heavy and oppressive. Harper sensed Sophia's tension in her embrace, attuned to the charged atmosphere surrounding them. Thomas advanced, his voice laced with an unsettling calm. Mr. Arya, I believe it would be best for you to take your leave. Benjamin responded, I won't be going anywhere without my wife and daughter. It seems you'll be here for quite a while, Harper remarked. Benjamin gazed at her, utterly astonished. So you're picking him instead of me? Against your own husband? I am opting for compassion instead of self-interest. I'm selecting the one who remained rather than the one who departed. I'm prioritizing love instead of ownership. Affection? Benjamin let out a harsh, mirthless laugh. Do you believe he has feelings for you? Harper, take a moment to reflect on who you are. Reflect on your origins. Do you really believe someone like him could genuinely care for something so flawed? The intent behind the words was to inflict pain, and they succeeded. Harper experienced them as sharp stabs, reopening scars she believed had mended. As she gazed at Thomas's face, noticing the anguish etched there for her sake, a significant realization dawned upon her. Perhaps I am broken, she murmured softly. Perhaps I am no longer the person I once was. However, that doesn't imply that I lack the capacity to be loved. In that instant, Sophia extended her hand toward Thomas, her tiny fingers seeking the solace he embodied. The action was straightforward, pure, yet it conveyed so much about the foundation of her trust. Benjamin noticed it as well, and his expression faltered just a bit. She's my daughter, he stated, though his voice wavered with doubt. Indeed, Harper consented. Indeed she is. However, being a father goes beyond mere biology, Benjamin. It signifies showing up when your presence is required. Mr. Aldrich had been observing the exchange with keen attention, but at this moment, he decided to interject. It might be beneficial to explore the legal implications of this scenario. Legal truths? Benjamin cast a wary glance in his direction. The lawyer explained in a composed manner that, according to Illinois law, leaving one's family for over 6 months can serve as a valid reason for divorce. Mrs. Arya appears to have a compelling argument for ending the marriage and securing custody of the child. Benjamin's assured demeanor started to falter. Desertion? I was engaged in my tasks, crafting a vision for tomorrow. Mr. Aldrich continued without offering any assistance to your wife and child during that period, lacking any updates regarding your location or plans. The regulations are distinctly outlined regarding this issue. Harper observed the expression on Benjamin's face as the weight of his circumstances began to dawn on him. The gold in his pouch could address numerous issues, yet it was powerless to reverse the months spent away or wipe away the repercussions of his decisions. Harper, Benjamin said, his voice taking on a desperate tone. Let's begin anew. A new start. I recognize I've erred, yet. You didn't make mistakes, Benjamin, Harper said with a hint of sorrow in her voice. Decisions were made. Now I am creating my own. Sophia started to whimper once more, feeling the weight of the tension and the presence of unfamiliar voices around her. Harper cradled her softly, humming a soothing melody that brought tranquility to both the infant and her own spirit. What is required? Benjamin inquired abruptly. All eyes in the room were fixed on him. Could you clarify what you mean? Harper inquired. What would it require for you to join me on this journey? Funds, a larger residence, attendance. State your fee. The inquiry unveiled a great deal regarding Benjamin's perspective on the world and his view of her. All things came with a cost. All things are for sale, even affection and fidelity. There's no price, Harper said, looking at Benjamin. You fail to grasp that. Thomas had remained silent for the majority of the conversation, yet now he moved in closer to stand beside Harper. Mr. Arya, your wife has decisively expressed her preference. I believe it's time for you to acknowledge that. Benjamin surveyed the room, taking in the lawyer clutching the divorce papers, Thomas standing guard, Harper exuding quiet resolve, and Sophia reaching out to anyone but him. This isn't over, he said finally. Indeed, Harper replied softly. Indeed it is. Once Benjamin departed, forcefully shutting the door in his wake, an unusual tranquility enveloped the office. Sophia drifted back into slumber, weary from the emotional turmoil that eluded her comprehension, yet was undeniably present. Mr. Aldrich remarked, adjusting his papers with a sense of purpose. That was enlightening. Harper slumped into her chair, an overwhelming sense of exhaustion washing over her. What comes next? The lawyer responded. Now we move forward with the legal protections we talked about. Separation documents, parenting plans, and... He cast a significant glance back and forth between Harper and Thomas. Any other arrangements you may want to consider? Thomas extended his hand and gently grasped Harper's. There's no need for us to make all the decisions today, Harper. There is ample time ahead of us. As Harper gazed at Sophia's peaceful face, it struck her that time could be a luxury they might not possess. Benjamin had discovered them before. He would uncover them once more. Next time, he may bring company. The afternoon sun was moving, stretching shadows further across the lawyer's office. Outside, Chicago thrived in its bustling rhythm, oblivious to the pivotal moment unfolding in a modest room where a woman was determining her own path and her daughter's destiny. Harper grasped Thomas's hand tightly, signaling her resolve. A fist struck Thomas's front door with the force of a storm breaking the stillness of dawn. Harper let the teacup slip from her hands as she was washing it, and it shattered into countless tiny fragments that scattered across the kitchen floor. Sophia's wails echoed from her high chair, sending a chill racing down Harper's spine, reminiscent of winter rain. I'll handle it, Thomas called from the sitting room, but Harper was already on her way. She recognized that knock. She had encountered it countless times prior, fierce, insistent, and fraught with chaos. Benjamin Arya stood on the porch steps, his clothes dusty from travel, and his gaze as unyielding as river stones. He appeared more aged than she recalled, with fresh creases framing his mouth and a scar tracing down his left cheek. His hands bore the marks of hard work, rough and soiled, with remnants of gold dust still clinging to his fingernails. "Hello, wife," he said, striding past her into the house without a moment's hesitation. Harper's heart raced within her chest, frantic and wild like a bird caught in a cage. "Benjamin, you've returned." "Naturally, I returned." He surveyed the elegant hallway, absorbing the gleaming wooden floors and the lavish artwork adorning the walls. His gaze sharpened as he took in the immaculate appearance and polished attire of Harper. "It appears you chose not to wait for me." Thomas stood in the doorway, cradling Sophia in his embrace. The infant ceased its wailing, fixating on Benjamin with large, inquisitive eyes. She was unfamiliar with this peculiar man who carried the scent of horses and whiskey. "You must be the husband," Thomas said softly. Benjamin chuckled, yet it lacked any trace of joy. "I find myself questioning whether I still have a wife." He approached Thomas, and Harper could sense the tension rising in his shoulders. "Your home is quite lovely. It must be quite expensive to maintain." "Benjamin, hold on," Harper interjected, placing herself between them. "Allow me to clarify." "Could you clarify what you mean?" "How you chose to live with another man while I was dedicated to creating a future for us." Benjamin's voice rose in intensity with every word he spoke. "How could you allow him to take on the role of father to my daughter?" Sophia started to whine at the elevated tones. Thomas cradled her softly, his expression serene while his gaze remained attentive. "Maybe we ought to take a moment to talk this over in a respectful manner." "Refined?" Benjamin pivoted sharply to confront him. "You take away a man's family and then have the audacity to discuss civility with me?" Harper's eyes welled up with tears. Her greatest nightmare had become a reality. The two men she cherished stood before each other as adversaries. No one took anything. You abandoned us, Benjamin. You turned your back when the challenges arose. I set out in search of gold, to earn income that would enhance our quality of life. Benjamin retrieved a compact leather pouch from his pocket and gave it a gentle shake. The melodic clinking of coins resonated throughout the room. I discovered it. I returned with wealth, Harper. Wealthy enough to acquire whatever your heart desires. Thomas passed Sophia to Harper and moved ahead. Wealth isn't a cure-all, Mr. Arya. Does it not? Benjamin's eyes sparkled with fury and an unsettling intensity hinting at a lurking threat. Let's find out just how much you truly care for my wife. I'll offer you $500 to leave this behind. At this moment, silence enveloped the room, broken only by the gentle sound of Sophia's breathing. Harper gazed at Benjamin, astonished that he would attempt to acquire Thomas as if he were merely an object for sale. Yet Thomas merely shook his head. Mrs. Arya is not available for purchase, he stated plainly. Benjamin's face flushed with color. All things are available for purchase. Each individual has their own value. What do you have? 1,000? 2,000? Benjamin, please stop, Harper said. Her voice trembled, but it was no longer out of fear. She was becoming increasingly frustrated as well. He won't be taking your money. Why not indeed? He seized all that remained. Benjamin seized Harper's arm, causing her to flinch at his hold. Do you believe he has feelings for you? Do you really believe this is genuine? He's merely pretending to settle down until he finds something better. Thomas's voice sliced through the air with precision. Release her. At this moment. There was a quality in his voice that prompted Benjamin to let go of Harper's arm. For a brief instant, the two men locked eyes, and Harper sensed the tension swirling around them, thick and palpable like a cloud of smoke. At that moment, Sophia's tears flowed once more, shattering the enchantment. Look at what you've done, Harper said, gently rocking her daughter. You're making her feel uneasy. Benjamin's expression became a touch gentler as he gazed at Sophia. She has grown significantly. She nearly lost her life, Harper murmured softly, during the previous winter season. Pneumonia. The doctor mentioned that if we had waited another day, we would have lost her. For the first time since his arrival, Benjamin appeared unsure. I was unaware. How could you do that? You were absent. Harper strolled to the window, gazing out at the garden where she and Sophia spent their mornings in joyful play. Have you ever experienced the heart-wrenching sight of your child fighting for each breath, to tally each coin and realize it falls short? Benjamin adjusted his position, feeling a sense of unease. I aim to improve the situation. By abandoning us in our time of need? Harper pivoted to confront him. I parted with all our possessions, Benjamin. The wedding band that symbolizes my love, the cherished pieces of my mother's collection, the carefully selected furniture that fills my home. I was prepared to. She paused, casting a look at Thomas. Prepared for what? Benjamin insisted. Harper raised her chin. Prepared to go to any lengths to ensure our daughter's survival. The words lingered in the atmosphere, heavy with implication. Benjamin shifted his gaze between Harper and Thomas, a realization slowly taking shape on his face. Thus began the tale, he remarked with deliberation. You presented yourself, and he chose to invest in you. No, Thomas stated with conviction. That is not the case. Is it not? Benjamin took a seat, sliding into the chair unbidden. My wife was in a tough spot. You had the resources, and now she's residing in your home. It appears quite evident to me. Harper's cheeks flushed with a mix of shame and simmering anger. Your perspective is mistaken. Is that so? So, please share the truth with me, Harper. Everything. Indeed, she did. She recounted the harsh winter when Sophia fell ill, concerning the act of parting with all their possessions, yet still falling short of funds for essential medication. Regarding the message she shared seeking employment, and how Mrs. Charlotte informed her about a gentleman in search of companionship. I went to meet him, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I was prepared to do anything he desired. However, Thomas had other ideas. He handed me the cash for Sophia's medicine. Absolutely no obligations. Benjamin absorbed every word, his expression growing more somber with each passing moment. After she concluded, he remained silent for an extended period. So, You accepted help from someone you didn't know, he remarked at last. Harper responded that she received kindness from a friend. And then you decided to share a space with him. We were on the brink of eviction. Thomas extended an invitation for us to make his place our home. Benjamin rose abruptly, the sound of his chair dragging across the floor echoing in the silence. What sort of man allows his wife to reside with another man? What type of woman is willing to accept? She prioritizes her child's needs above all else, Thomas remarked softly. What about you? Benjamin spun around to face him. What sort of man welcomes another man's wife and child into his life? What benefits do you derive from this arrangement? Thomas paused, weighing his words with thoughtful deliberation. I have the chance to recall the sensation of being significant to another person. To create a family once more. Your family is gone, Benjamin said with a harsh edge. This is not your family, this belongs to me. Harper had reached her limit. She passed Sophia to Thomas and positioned herself squarely in front of Benjamin. Sophia and I do not belong to you. We are not possessions to be owned, exchanged, or sold. You are my spouse, in theory perhaps. But when have you ever behaved like a partner? When have you ever prioritized us? Harper's voice intensified with every word she spoke. A true partner stands by his family during challenging times. A true partner doesn't resort to material wealth or intimidation to mend a relationship. Benjamin gazed at her, as though he were encountering her anew. You've transformed. Indeed, I have. I've come to realize that I am worthy of more than someone who seeks me out solely when it suits them. So, you believe he's superior? Benjamin inclined his head in Thomas's direction. Harper gazed at Thomas, who cradled Sophia in his arms, swaying gently while humming a soothing lullaby. The infant had settled and was engaged with his coat buttons, radiating trust and contentment. She expressed her belief that he is a good man who has shown us kindness during our times of greatest need. It seems he has revealed to me the true essence of love. Benjamin's expression contorted with fury and pain. Is that all there is? You picked him instead of me? I opt for joy instead of sorrow. I prioritize respect rather than exerting control. I select an individual who recognizes my humanity, rather than viewing me as an object. For a fleeting instant, Harper feared that Benjamin could strike her. His hands balled into fists, and his entire body shook with rage. However, when Sophia chuckled at Thomas's antics, the sound appeared to sap his energy. She doesn't even know me, he murmured softly, gazing at his daughter. She could, Harper said softly, if he wished to be her father rather than merely asserting his ownership over her. Benjamin gave a slight shake of his head. The moment has passed for that. Your eyes reveal everything, Harper. Your decision is final. He approached the door, paused, and glanced back. I might create some difficulties for you. Both of you. A wife cannot simply walk away from her husband, at least not within the bounds of the law. Indeed, Harper acknowledged. However, I shall not, Benjamin persisted. I possess ample resources to begin anew in a different place. Perhaps California or possibly Colorado. In a place hidden from the world lies the family I couldn't hold together. He cast another glance at Sophia, then shifted his gaze to Harper. Be happy, he said. And for the first time since his arrival, his voice resonated with the warmth of the man she had once cherished. Find a joy that surpasses anything you've experienced with me. Once he departed, Harper and Thomas lingered in the hallway, cradling Sophia between them. The house had an unusual quality, a sense of buoyancy, as if a tempest had swept through and cleared the air, revealing a bright expanse above. Are you okay? Thomas inquired gently. Harper nodded, her cheeks glistening with tears. I believe I am. After quite a while, I genuinely believe I am. 3 months after Benjamin departed, Harper found herself before the mirror in her bedroom, carefully adjusting her finest dress. It was a delicate blue silk adorned with tiny white flowers, a thoughtful gift from Thomas for her birthday. She had never possessed anything so exquisite. Feeling a bit anxious? Thomas inquired from the threshold. Harper glanced over at him. He donned his best suit, the very one he had chosen for his first wife's funeral. However, today was not focused on conclusions. Today marked the start of something new. She conceded a bit. What happens if the judge declines? What if he believes we're not suitable? Thomas moved across the room, gently taking her hands in his. Judge Morrison embodies fairness in his judgments. He'll perceive what I perceive, a mother who cherishes her daughter above all else, and a man who aspires to provide them both with a family. Harper nodded, yet a swarm of butterflies danced in her stomach. Today, they were heading to court to finalize everything. Thomas sought to adopt Sophia and legally bind himself to Harper as her husband. It ought to have been straightforward, yet Harper understood that simplicity had never been a part of her existence. "What will others think?" she inquired. "There will always be something for people to comment on," Thomas replied. "What truly matters is the knowledge we hold to be accurate." A gentle rap on the door broke the silence. Mrs. Patterson, their neighbor, looked in with a friendly grin. "The carriage awaits," she declared. "Little Sophia is all dressed up and prepared to head out." Harper descended the stairs after Thomas, finding Sophia seated on the parlor floor, adorned in her most exquisite dress of white cotton, embellished with delicate pink ribbons. She had transformed remarkably over the past year, evolving from a frail infant into a vibrant, joyful toddler who chattered endlessly and explored everything around her. "Mother!" Sophia lifted her arms, eager to be embraced, and Harper gathered her into a warm hug. "Exactly, darling. Mom and Dad will ensure that we stay united always." The courthouse buzzed with more activity than Harper had anticipated. Individuals rushed up and down the marble steps, clutching papers and conversing in low tones. Judge Morrison's office occupied the third floor, and by the time they ascended all the stairs, Harper found herself breathing heavily. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore?" A clerk raised his gaze from the cluttered desk. "The judge is ready to see you now." "Indeed," Harper murmured gently. "It remains Miss Aria. That's our mission to resolve." Judge Morrison appeared more seasoned than Harper had anticipated, sporting white hair and possessing kind eyes framed by wire-rimmed glasses. The aroma of leather-bound books and pipe tobacco filled the office, while legal documents sprawled across every inch of his desk. "Please take a seat," he said, motioning toward the two chairs positioned in front of his desk. "I have reviewed your petition, Mr. Whitmore. This is rather uncommon." Harper felt a heavy weight in her chest. "In what way is it considered unusual?" "Indeed, Miss Aria, it's quite rare for a single woman to pursue marriage with a man who also desires to adopt her child simultaneously. Typically, these events unfold in a different sequence." Thomas inclined his body, eager and attentive. "Is that an issue, Your Honor?" Judge Morrison beamed. "It's not an issue, precisely. Quite intriguing. Pray tell, Miss Aria, what is it that draws you to the prospect of marrying Mr. Whitmore?" The inquiry took Harper by surprise. She anticipated inquiries regarding her history, concerning Benjamin, and her capabilities as a mother. She was caught off guard by the question about love. She finally said it was because he was a good man. "His kindness towards both Sophia and me is what makes him special. He creates a sense of security and belonging for us." "And what about you, Mr. Whitmore? What is your motivation for marrying Miss Aria and adopting her child?" Thomas paused, his gaze fixed on Sophia, who was engrossed in a wooden toy resting on Harper's lap. "They have restored happiness to my existence, Your Honor. My first wife and I did not have the fortune of welcoming children into our lives. The moment Harper and Sophia stepped into my home, a sense of wholeness returned." Judge Morrison jotted down some notes on his papers. "Miss Aria, I would like to inquire about your first husband, Mr. Benjamin Aria. Where is he at this moment?" Harper felt a constriction in her throat. "He departed for California, Your Honor. He signed documents relinquishing any rights to Sophia and to me. Copies are with my lawyer. Indeed, I observed that here." Judge Morrison meticulously sifted through the papers. He agreed to receive financial compensation in return for consenting to the divorce and relinquishing his parental rights. "That's quite uncommon. Is it inappropriate?" Harper inquired softly. "Not entirely incorrect. However, it does prompt inquiries regarding his character and the situation surrounding your separation." Harper sensed a flush rise to her cheeks. She understood the true intent behind the judge's question. He sought to uncover the truth about her fidelity, to determine whether Sophia truly belonged to Benjamin, and to unveil any hidden secrets that could resurface and create complications in the future. "Your Honor," Thomas stated with conviction, "Miss Aria has consistently demonstrated honesty and integrity in all her interactions. Any errors committed by her first husband were solely his responsibility." Judge Morrison observed them intently for an extended moment. Then he grinned. "It's clear that there is a deep, authentic care between you two. Miss Sophia appears to be in great spirits and good health. As though she sensed their conversation was centered around her, Sophia glanced at the judge and offered him her brightest smile. He let out a soft laugh and contorted his face in amusing ways until she burst into giggles. With a nod, he declared, grasping his pen firmly, "I find no justification to reject your request. Mr. Whitmore, you are permitted to wed Miss Aria, and the adoption documents for Sophia will be completed concurrently." Harper's eyes welled up with tears. "Is that so?" In an instant, just like that, Judge Morrison signed the documents with a dramatic flair. "However, I do have a particular stipulation." Harper's heart froze in place. "Which condition are you referring to?" "Make a vow to maintain the joy that radiates from you at this moment. Both of you." Thomas chuckled and gently grasped Harper's hand. "I believe we can handle that, Your Honor." The wedding ceremony was intimate and straightforward, taking place in the courthouse chapel with Mrs. Patterson and the clerk serving as witnesses. Harper donned her elegant blue silk dress and held a charming bouquet of wildflowers, freshly gathered by Thomas that very morning. Sophia occupied the front row, her hands coming together in applause with each spoken word. As the minister inquired of Thomas whether he would accept Harper as his wife, his voice resonated with strength and clarity. "I shall." As he posed the same question to Harper, she gazed into Thomas's gentle eyes, reflecting on all they had experienced together. The frigid winter evenings spent by her side as Sophia battled illness, the leisurely strolls in the park when he had thoughtfully guided Sophia through the names of various birds, the serene nights filled with conversations about aspirations and anxieties. "I will," she declared, her heart fully committed to the promise. The minister declared them husband and wife, and Thomas leaned in for a gentle kiss as Sophia let out a joyful squeal, while Mrs. Patterson wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. Following the ceremony, they headed to a lovely restaurant for dinner. Sophia drifted off in Harper's embrace as Thomas recounted tales from his youth, filling the air with laughter that made Harper double over in joy. For the first time in ages, Harper experienced a profound sense of joy that she couldn't recall feeling before. That evening, as they tucked Sophia into her new nursery, the room Thomas had dedicated countless hours to painting and decorating, Harper felt the weight of how profoundly her life had transformed. A year prior, she found herself in a state of desperation and solitude, willing to give up everything for the sake of her daughter's survival. At last, she belonged to a genuine family, with a husband who cherished her, and a father for Sophia who would always stand by them. "Thank you," she murmured to Thomas, her gaze fixed on Sophia as she slept peacefully. "What for?" "For recognizing the value that lies within us. For selecting love when countless alternatives were at your fingertips." Thomas wrapped his arm around her, drawing her in tightly. "Love wasn't my choice, Harper. Destiny embraced me. It selected us both." As they strolled back to their own space, their space now, officially and eternally, Harper reflected on the extensive journey that had led them to this moment. It was a challenging journey, and there were moments when she believed it could never be achieved. Yet here they stood, a family formed not from duty or need, but from authentic affection, esteem, and love. Sophia stirred from her sleep, tears streaming down her face just before the clock struck midnight, prompting both of them to rush in and offer their solace. Thomas gently swayed her back and forth as Harper softly sang a lullaby, and before long she was drifting off into a peaceful slumber once more. Harper spoke gently. "She'll grow up feeling cherished, understanding that she is cherished by both of us. She will become strong and courageous, just like her mother," Thomas said. As they nestled into bed for the first time as a married couple, Harper experienced a tranquility she had never felt before. The breeze whispered softly among the trees, while in the distance, the melodic chime of church bells marked the passing hour. Within the walls of their home, a comforting warmth enveloped them, creating a sanctuary brimming with affection. Harper discovered that often the most valuable outcomes emerged from the most challenging situations. At times, individuals astonish you with their generosity when you anticipated nothing but harshness. At times, love truly has the power to triumph over challenges that appear insurmountable. At times, if fortune favored you and courage filled your heart, you might create a new existence that surpassed even your wildest aspirations.